as well that they should also join on time. And while the others are joining in, uh, I would like to remind you about the activity that we discussed about in the last session. So, if you've not yet started working on it, I have received a couple of entries. So, I think you started working on it already. But if you've still not started, please do ensure that you submit it well before the deadline. Okay. Right. So once again, good evening. Welcome everyone. And today we are here for the third session for Agenda for Survival 2025. And so far, we have talked about climate linkages. We talked about vulnerable groups. And then we gave you an assignment to to find out any one issue within your local community and how can you identify the groups that are being impacted the most. And I hope that has helped you understand the kind of impacts that your community is facing, and the kind of struggles that are going on in your community. So now we are here to take that discussion one step further. So you have identified the impacts in your community. You have sort of identified the kind of people who are the most vulnerable to those impacts. So now that you're aware about these issues, what would be the next step? Naturally, the next step would be to make others aware about the kind of issues that you are facing, your community is facing, and to bring spotlight onto those issues. And a very, very powerful medium to do that is by writing. So, how do you report such issues? How do you create a powerful narrative? And how do you ensure that your story is actually powerful enough to be accepted into onto platforms like Down to Earth? So to discuss all of that and much more, we have with us today Richard Mahapatra. Richard has been working with Down to Earth, which I'm sure most of you have heard about. Most of you have um, taken articles from there. So he has been working for Down to Earth for decades now, and he is here to answer all the questions that I just mentioned. Any other questions that you might have on how to write a story, how to report a story, and how do you work around platforms like Down to Earth. So, without further delay, I would hand it over to Richard.
Thank you, Sakhi, and good evening, everybody. And I can see so many of you are here. And I am Richard Mahapatra. I've been a journalist. Mostly, I have been reporting for Down to Earth magazine. And so, primarily, you call us journalists, but what you do is basically um, we don't write story or articles, we communicate. So that's all about what I do and what we'll be hearing, and whatever little bit of experience I have in communicating as a journalist in the form of a story is basically I will share that might help. So, but before that, I just want to hear from you, one or two persons can see. Do you remember today's day? Any great conversation or communications you had? Can one of you just say that? But today you had a communication that you remember, or a long conversations, how it started. Anything remarkable about that? It's going to be 12 hours from sunrise to now.
So actually, may I know like conversation about which topics, like with whom?
Anything, today's life, from morning
Actually,
at the time you woke up till
we
now.
does a lot of conversation when we sit together in front of fire, because this is a winter season. So when we sit along with other people in our village, then we do talk about things like whenever I talk to somebody, like if I talk to my grandparents today, and I was just talking about how was your time, like when you were a kid, and they used to say like there was not that much facilities, and the weather was not like this, something like that, and we didn't even felt this much winter. So something like this was happening, or we were talking about this.
Mhm. So
And one more
you,
thing. Yeah,
sorry to interrupt you. Your conversation started from which point when you met your grandfather?
actually I just asked him like आपके समय में ऐसा होता था क्या, मतलब इतना ज्यादा ठंड या फिर ऐसा जो मौसम है या फिर मौसम में परिवर्तन, मतलब ऐसे ही बैठे हुए थे आपके सामने तो.
Okay. So you have a story to tell now.
Yeah, actually, I got to know about their time, like how everything was going on, way before 1960s or 70s time.
Mm. Okay, the point I was making, so it started from you spoke to him and he replied you back, then you got to know about something, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes,
And in say that in a day we speak to so many people, isn't it?
yes, sir, definitely.
Okay. So let me start. I think why I was asking is that uh, memories, our interactions are really very interactive. Knowingly, unknowingly, we don't know from where we start a conversations, where we end it. It's actually moves like that, biologically, and also if you look at it, our social communications point of view, it moves like that. What we will be hearing from you today in this is basically how to have this kind of conversations, this kind of stories, how to actually put them in a very structured way so that we communicate well. Because communication is broadly, why we communicate and all these things will go into the detail, but it's basically the same way you spoke to your grandfather, you had something in mind, he spoke back to you or answered your
You
questions.
repeat?
And broadly, if you look at it, sorry, I think I lost something. So, am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible, Ritu.
Yes.
Yeah. So, whatever we do, we communicate. Random communication happens, but the objective of a piece of any communication is to pass on a message. And there is an objective to it also. So, let me start with this one. Let me share you a very small, oh, sorry, what I did. I will share my, okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I have just, titled it a story, a teller, and the frame. This is all about, just going back to your conversation with your grandfather. There is a story, there is a teller, and the frame. Post conversation, if you look at it, you have a story, this changing climate, and there has to be a teller. that I suppose you, and there has to be a frame that we'll talk about. So let me go to the, where is that? What is this happening? Okay, let me start with this. Who are we? I think humans definitely. But if you ask actually, as a species like others, we are not writers, but we are communicators. Primarily, we communicate. And the communication is basically takes place in various ways. Species are communicating to each other, humans are communicating to each other, family members are communicating to each other. But primarily, if you look at it, we are pathological communicators. I'll give you a very hard facts about our existence. For example, the human thought. The Caltech researchers have quantified the speed of human thought, and they say that it's at the rate of 10 beats per second. That's a human thought. But our body's sensory systems gather data about our environment at the rate of a 1 billion beats per second, which is 100 million times faster than our thought. And remember, this body sensory systems basically they do communication. So you can now make sense of what we are. What kind of communications go around, which basically takes place at the rate of, 1 billion bits per seconds. So that's why what you call the pathologically or genetically, we are a communicator. In your body, the brain is communicating, the body is communicating, every cell is communicating. And why we communicate? Basically, this communication takes place because we need to understand the science of communication. That's why I'm giving you in this example. We communicate to pass on message, mantras, and many other essentials. Like your grandfather communicated to you about his time. And
Richard, the slides are not changing.
oh, is it changing now?
No, still on the first slide.
Can I reshare it?
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe if Sakshi has the slides, then she can share it for you.
Is
Yeah,
it moving?
yeah, it's moving now.
Now it's moving?
Yeah,
Okay. So as I just say, sorry for this interruptions and all these things. So we communicate to pass on message, mantras, and many other essentials. And I just gave you the example of your grandfather, the person you just told me he just communicated about his time, his experiences, and everything. So primarily, we are communicators. Now the question comes, why we communicate? Like many of you are into various vocations, communications is a very critical part of your job. And by definition, communication is something actually psychologically, if you look at it, communication is defined as something to influence, to take over. It's a psychological game. So primarily, we communicate to change, or we communicate a change. And that's why we need to communicate. So that's primarily what communication means. But as I told you in the beginning also, there is no set definition. We are primarily, genetically, pathologically communicators. But there is a character to communications. It's to give you a very, broad example which you can relate to. It's a two-way road kind of thing. It means basically communication is a two-way road. So I am communicating to you, and you must communicate back to me. That's where the question of the change, the influence, and all these things. Communication doesn't happen. I'll just speak to you through Zoom, and you sit through it and you don't react if you don't get it out. So primarily as a scientific definitions or as a psychological, interpretation of communications as a form, it's basically two-way road. I communicate two-way. I speak and you get back to me. So there is an understanding between who is communicating and to whom. Now come to the part that we will be talking about today. Like this word story, don't get it wrong. I'm a journalist. We speak in these terms and terminologies. For us, every communication is a story. I'm a journalist, so I have to write a story. We call it a story. But the first thing that comes to mind is what is that piece of communication that you want to do? Many of you are already into research, hardcore research, doing PhD. All of you have an objective. So that's your story. And you want to communicate your findings, your experiences, and all these things. So before starting communication, actually, what we start or before writing down our experience, what we do is basically these are the three things that you have to keep in mind. And that's called how to communicate a story or how to communicate a research piece. The first, what is a story? I think that's the beginning of any writing that you have to do on anything. And this operational word is story. It could be means any piece of research or anything that you do. What is that you want to actually communicate? That you must be sure about to begin with. Jot down that. Then the second, in all communications or while communications, any story or communicating any piece of research or its findings, the question comes, is it something actually new that I am going to communicate or writing about? In our journalistic term, we always call it is news is supposed to be new. But the question you have to actually raise is news always new? I'll give you an example. Currently, all the newspapers you read, you will see full of stories on air pollution in Delhi. Go back to the same time last year and you read the newspapers. It's almost like copy and paste. The chief minister might have changed or something might have changed, but it remains the same. So what's new about this news about, air pollution? So that's the second part that you have to keep in mind. What is the new? And remember, new is not just that has to be completely, you know, out of the world new kind of things. You do research and all these things, you always have something new to come out with. You have a story which might be something interesting, though it's very general sounding, like that grandfather's conversation with the grandchild on season on face doesn't sound very new, but there might be something new that you found out. Then the third question is that can anything be told as a story anytime? Anything and anytime. Is it possible? And I gave you an example of the current air pollution coverage that has been happening for decades now. It's almost a routine for journalists like me to do the same thing again and again. So my question is that I have to figure out while communicating a story or a piece of research or whatever you are doing and you want to do a story, can anything be told as a story anytime? I can't wait for December or November to again tell the story of pollution. Can I tell the story of pollution, air pollution at any point of time, say in March, April, May? So next, go to the point. And so what I say that key, oh sorry, everything actually what makes, whenever you are attempting a story or want to write down a story, remember the context makes everything a new story or a story which can people read, can feel about. And what is the context? Like suppose, for example, the context, coming back to your air pollution storage, the context is always like that. During the winter, there is a meteorological factor about Delhi's geography. That's why you actually see the pollution. It doesn't mean that Delhi is cleaner rest of the season. So there is context to it that the winter will come, these meteorological factors will play a role, and I will tell the story of pollution again, and it looks fresh, and people will actually read it because they are living in that context. So one can always retell a story. It's never old, but the context has to be set. And when the context is actually their right context, then the next question is it will be relevant and strategic as well. I'll come to this two term. If a story is never old, you can always tell a story and say that. Then the next question is that the one condition is that it has to be relevant. Your grandfather's, memory of his time and your memory of the or lived experience of the current season has to be made relevant. That's how basically you look at how you frame a story. It is relevant. Between you and your grandfather, the climate crisis has chipped in. So it's relevant because there is climate change. So the death of season between in hardly few decades can be retold because it's relevant to the current situation, as well as whether it is strategic or not. Remember the strategic word that I have used here, you have to think from your perspective. If you have done a piece of writing, you have done a piece of research, and you have some great finding. So you have a strategic interest whether this research can be propagated or be made public so that people can know about it. So that strategic need is there. So you have to put it that way. Now, so basically, to sum it up this one, before we go to the nuances of how to write down a story or to frame a story, please keep this in mind. The mantra is you need the context to the text always. I don't know in which context you spoke to your grandfather about the season, but check it out. Now, when you dissect your conversation and everything, you will see that you had a context. So keep this in mind. Need the context to the text. Now come to all the technicalities of it. So how to frame the story? Now suppose you have everything now. You have spoken to people, you have a great research work done, findings are really path breaking. You are doing an essay even. What are the questions that you need to ask when you sit down? Or what you call the how to frame a story or an article or a piece of communication. These are the few things you need to check it out. The first question, why did I do this? The why actually is very critical. You need to be very clear, jot it down. Why I have to do this piece of communication, whether it's an article or a, summary of that great research I have done and results are out. So why I need to do this? The second questions.
Richard, I'm sorry to interrupt you. There's a question from a student. She's asking to give an example of context to text. So, would you like to take that later or address it now?
Okay, let me finish this and I'll come to this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Rather, I'll let me answer that first, otherwise we'll go ahead. So basically, context is in which situation you are going to communicate something. And one example could be is that mm, air pollution, say for example, air pollution is perennial in Indo-Gangetic plain, or for example, say in Delhi, air pollution in Delhi. So the text is ready, but the context is suppose this winter, as I pointed out, during winter point, you have meteorological factor, which basically, aggravate the situation. There is a concentration of pollutants. It's happening now. Smog is there. AQI is very high. So if you have done any story on the state of pollution in it, the context could be actually the meteorological factor, or say that now because it has heat, we have entered winter. So that will be the context, and your text will be the air pollution in Delhi. That basically each context could be the climate change. Otherwise, how you will communicate, a change in the season? The context is climate change. So this is precisely what I meant. So now coming back to this, when you start actually framing a story, the first question has to be why I did that I explained. Why? Then what is the context to it? Now come to these questions as I explained it. Suppose if you have you are writing on anything, such, in which context I actually did it, whether that research or any even a idea of writing something, in which context it came to my mind. Was it that, I was missing something about the climate? That's why got somebody who's very senior to me, that happens to be my grandfather. So in that climate context, actually, I spoke. So the context actually, you have to actually jot down. Then the third question, why should I communicate it now? So that's actually very critical, because if you remember, the newness comes here. It might not be a new thing. It might be an old story, but still you need to know and frame it and jot down why I should communicate it now. If you know the context, by this time you also know that why I should communicate it now. Sometime it could be that my finding is so great that nobody has known it. So I want to do this. This is the time. It could be as simple as that. But you need to raise this question and frame it and jot down. The fourth question in this framing phase, who is my audience? As you know, your communication is a two-way road. Communication is actually always you communicate to an audience, to somebody. It could be a grandfather, it could be, you know, thousands of readers of a newspaper or a magazine. Suppose I work for a magazine, there are thousands of readers. They are my audience, to whom I actually target my writing, my reporting to influence them. But you need to know the audience, because if you define your audience or you have a broad sense of your audience, you know how to communicate. The style of communication also depends on that. You know, your PhD supervisor, if you know your audience, you know how to communicate with him. At the same time, suppose you have a great finding and say that "Ki, the general mass need to know. So but you know that "Ki, this is general mass is my audience. So I can strategize my communication or the writing." So that's the fourth question. Now come to the next phase. You know, it's great doing all these things, questions. Now the big thing comes. So once you have jotted down those four questions, now time for laying out the story. It's very similar to when you create the layout or draw the layout for your while building a home. Why do you do that? It's basically done on a piece of paper. Before that, you have already spoken about what kind of how many people are there. We need to accommodate these families, that number, and all these things. Now, basically, you are laying down the house layout. What do we call in sorry? What do you call in communications is we have evolved an instrument. What we call in is called treatment note. Don't get overwhelmed by this note. Treatment note is very similar to what it's basically a replica the of a doctor writing a treatment protocol for you. You must have seen your prescription. What it does. In the first, it writes down, okay, the digits. Oh, he or she has this digit, fever for 5 days, this and this. Then you have she prescribes the medicines. Then the process also, few processes, gargle for 5 days, 5 times a day, or whatever it is. Then at the end, she says that, okay, come back for a follow-up after this and this. She does prescribe you some diagnosis test also. So you remember this prescription, how doctor writes it? So that is called the treatment note. It's a protocol. So for your communication and writing a piece of article, this is applicable. Because communication involves deep science of interaction with unknown audience and friends. I don't know any of you. I'm speaking to you. I have been reporting and writing for decades. I don't know actually the thousands of people who read my magazine or my article, but I have to communicate with them. So that's why this treatment note is all about that. So now let me give you in detail how to put it, the treatment note. So now you do your layout, your communication story into below. So treatment note has basically three aspects. Write down what is the drama. So it has three aspects actually: drama, the story, and the message. Remember, whatever you write, whatever you want to communicate, it goes through that universal structure: a beginning, a middle, and the end. Your mind, all our life is also all about that: the beginning, the middle, and the end. So a story, an article has also the same thing. It has basically three aspects: the beginning, the middle, and the end. But what I'm suggesting you and how to put it is basically the treatment note, the drama. First, check out the drama. Drama means what is very dramatic about it? What is the newness or something you feel that great about it? For example, the drama could be, let's look at that grandfather's conversation with the grandchild. He says that oh, it was very precise. The winter used to be like this and this and this. The drama could be that in just 50 years, something has vanished. I'm not privy into that conversation, but I'm just giving you an example. So the drama could be that Delhi is under air emergency for consecutive 20 days. What is the case now? So the drama, what's happening big? So jot down that drama in which you want to actually put it. Or it could be as simple as say that means something, any example. For example, say that let's talk about the air pollutions. For the first time after the COVID lockdown, the schools have been shut down for the longest period. That's quite dramatic, and it's due to the air pollution. So if I'm doing a story on this, so write down the drama. Then come to the second part and the most important part. What is the story then? Obviously, if you get to the drama, then I'm telling you the story key. Okay. For example, my story is the air emergency. So this is my story. Jot down ki, okay, this is my story that I'll take in this drama. And the end. What is the message you are giving out? In academic and all this thing, it's the way forward or, path forward and what you call. But the message, every story has a message. Every communication that you do has a message. So you just jot it down. So this is the three part of the treatment note: the drama, the story, the message. Now come to the second part when you sit down. It's called the structuring. What will be the structure of the story? I did the layout of my house now. Now I want to build the house. So the contractor is in, all the carriers are in, hardcore. That layout has to be actually given the shape of a house. So structure is all about that. Once you have your treatment note and all this drama, story, and the message ready and all these things, now is the time to actually put down the story. And remember, structuring a story, the God is in the structure as you believe. And that's true also. So based on the treatment note, write down the section, paragraph, relevant data, elements needed. Let me simplify it. A structure is basically will be just like saying that my first paragraph, the story of X and his or her experience. Next paragraph, I will introduce the context or the story, whatever it is, air pollution or these things. Then it actually gives you section wise. You can split your things into section wise. And with everything also, you must have seen it because you have been researching. Many of you are PhD candidates and all these things, and you must have seen in magazines and articles, some things, one map will be there, one set of data will be there. There will be many boxes talking about things. So all things actually thrash it out. You are building the house now from layout to real building. So this stage actually very critical when you actually put down the structure of the story. And again, the structure of the story is basically it will be as detailed as the introduction, the section one. Under section one, I'll write this and this, then this data point I'll use, this map I'll use, this box I'll use. So put it down. It almost like the screenplay of a movie where everything is actually jotted down. Now, come to the next part. So, the introduction is actually what you do. I'll give you an example. As I told, communication is basically to gain somebody's attention so that he or she will read you, and you need his or her attention. So the drama part is very much vital or critical. And that's what we call also the intro. How you actually enter a story or the first line of a story. You must have seen it. You read books and all this thing. The first line is always the most powerful line. Or when you read a piece of news in newspaper, the first line will be straight cut. Three people were killed in a road accident caused by dense or heavy smoke. So the intro is very critical and the drama part of the treatment note. Next, the story. Sorry. The story is basically, this is the story part of the treatment note. Thrust out each aspect of your story into section and subsections. And the last part is the way ahead. Broadly, the message part of the treatment note. It doesn't sound actually boring, but way ahead is big example, means very critical also is the way that if you might not be telling a whole story, but it's like leaving some things for the sequel. You must have seen it of a movie, sequel after sequel. They usually leave something there to tell the next story. So the way ahead, though it gives you a message, it also gives scope to the next. So basically, before I end it, so what you do? Forget about that understanding communication is there. So when you are writing down, want to communicate some things, you prepare that 4 questions you raise. That's the first one, why and all these things. Then the second is you prepare a treatment note. That's basically the drama, the story, and the message. And after that, the treatment note is used to structure your piece of writing actually before you start, because that helps you also to direct your research and everything and to be precise on these things. And the structure is a navigator. You can say it is a compass. Now, this is an exercise. I'll just take 5 minutes and you need to involve now and reply me back on this right away. Suppose the Reserve Bank of India has recently said that inflation is endemic now, food inflation to be specific. And it says, what's the reason? So the RBI, Reserve Bank of India says unseasonal weather is the biggest reason. Can any of you give me a story out of it? The drama is there. The context is there. Can anybody just give me a context to it, or which way you want to actually write down an article? Am I audible?
Yes, Richard, you're audible. I think it might help students if you could take a minute to unpack this headline, because they might be having trouble understanding what the headline is about.
Okay. So basically to say that recently the Reserve Bank of India in its monetary policy said that food inflation is going to remain there and will be more severe. And it's going to be a permanent problem for India. And why is that? The Reserve Bank of India says unseasonal weather is the reason. So this is what the Reserve Bank has said. So what I'm asking is basically, any of you, do you see a drama, a story, and what could be the message? Or what could be the context for this text or for this story to be told? Otherwise, everybody must have reported about it just in any business newspaper, all other newspaper that RBI said it. I see it as a great story and fits into all what we spoke about and how a big thing can be communicated through it. I just want to hear back. Anybody is responding somewhere?
Yes, sir. Sir, we can write like how will the poor get food anymore if the inflations will not drop, like that maybe.
Okay. Anybody else?
So we can write the reasons about it, like unseasonable weather.
That's there. The RBI said this. What I'm basically trying to explain you that whatever I just explained you, this piece of news. So why I have to write a piece on food inflation? I got it here. Unseasonal weather making basically damaging crops so much that the Reserve Bank of India is saying food inflation is going to be almost like an epidemic. And food inflation, we know when inflation is high, it hurts everybody. So the drama is that. Why is that? Now come to the unseasonal weather. On face, it looks like, oh, what's great about it? But remember the climate crisis. The story is basically the general climate change story. I am retelling the story here using a regular RBI press release. So I am adding context to the text of climate change, saying, and I will headline a story out of it saying that my story is climate change is making food unaffordable. India's large populations might not afford to have adequate food due to the price rise. So that's how basically you can the why and how and can you can frame it. I understand you have you have your exercises to do that you can do, but this one example I wanted to tell you. And thank you very much for this very basic and these things. You have any queries, you can now put it.
Yeah, you can put your queries in the chat box, or probably better if you can unmute yourself and discuss directly. Anything that you felt?
Okay, there is a question that please repeat the context and text in this exercise. Okay, the text is that RBI said food inflation is becoming severe, will be there. So that's why this word called endemic means it will remain there. That's the text. And it's due to the unseasonal rain or weather. So if this is the text, then the context here, I said that it's climate change context. Because this unseasonal weather is becoming not only regular, it's becoming severe, it's lingering throughout the year. And that's precisely is due to the change in the climate or what you call the climate change crisis. So that's the context. So the regular story about a climate change story, I am retelling through price food inflation. So that's the context to the text here. Yeah, precisely. Mr. Isan Kamani has said that you are all right, you are right on the dot. That's the way this, I think, the RBI food story could be told, and more powerful way. People might not relate to food inflations at my level, but you are now telling that story in larger context and the urgency, the drama, basically saying that climate change now hits your kitchen and your food security. So another one is that what common writing mistakes do you see in beginners, especially in environmental journalism? Okay, I am not going into the grammar or the clinical stuff. For beginners and all these things, I think as it says that as beginners, we need to commit certain mistakes, but understanding a story and its environmental meaning is where actually that we go wrong usually. Like why I told you this RBI news piece is also because this is a great environmental story, the biggest story of our time, how it's unfolding. That's the climate story. Similarly, look at, people will just end up lying. Similar the pandemic. We all as beginners and facing a pandemic of a new things, we committed this mistake of uh, the story taking this as a health story. It was an environmental story, the biggest environmental story, which hit us the hardest way on our health. So that's where. So please keep read and do more research. Try to understand the linkages more deeply so that you tell the story in different way also. So here is once Mr. Siddhartha drama. Have your grocery expenses increasing in recent months? Well, that might not be over soon because climate change. Yeah, fantastic. It's 100 to 100. That's the drama. Just put a face to this sentence that you wrote, speak to somebody, and you will find it. And you are changing the biggest climate change story in day-to-day life, which threatens a household's food security. That's perfect, Mr. Siddhartha.
Any other questions, anything, comments you'd like to share? Like Siddharth has shared his idea. Okay, I think Richard, I will collect questions if I get them, and I will pass them on to you in case somebody wants to discuss something further.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Would love to do that.
thank you. Thank you so
But
much.
thank you very much. Thank you for listening me. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Richard, for covering that so deeply and with so many examples. I'm sure you now have a fair idea of the structure that you can follow to write your stories, to report about your issues. Um, I had taken one example from DTE to to do a similar kind of exercise. Maybe that example will help you consolidate things a little bit further. So this is one of the stories from DTE. This educator in Rajasthan has set up a Jal Sansad in schools to help students harvest and conserve water. So, yeah, this was the story, and it was reported in DTE by Anil Ashwini Sharma. You can find the story if you simply go on DTE and search Jal Sansad. So now, if somebody would like to share what is the drama here, what is the context here, and how do they see it unfolding as a story? So if you do this exercise of putting any issue that you observe or you would like to research on into the structure that Richard has shared today, it will really help you come up with a very coherent narrative, coherent story that you will be able to share with others and bring your issue and your research into the spotlight. So, for instance, this story is about an educator who actually set up a water parliament, and the members were all students. So, the context in which this entire story is unfolding is water scarcity in Rajasthan and its linkages to climate change, of course. So, while Rajasthan already faces severe water shortage, it has become even more complex and intense because of climate change. So that is the backdrop against which this entire story was written. And then what is the story about? It is about empowering students. It is about creating a space where students learn about water conservation and also about practical solutions to conserve water. So yeah, this was done in over 150 schools by an educator, Miss Sheila Asopa, and she focused on rainwater harvesting. She focused on water audits in the school. You can find all those details if you refer to the story on the DTE website. Now, when you start writing, reporting this story, it will include the drama, that is a student parliament against the backdrop of um, water scarcity in Rajasthan. And then you start thinking about the sections in which your story will unfold. So first, what is the parliament about? What is this student parliament about? And what was its aim? Then how does the student parliament work? So this section will contain information about the functioning of this Jal Sansad. So student committees were made by the teacher. These student committees performed water audits. Then infrastructure development requests were sent to the appropriate authorities. And of course, a student also learned how water conservation can become a part of their daily classroom discussions. So this is a part of the overall story. Then the final bit is the transformative result that was seen in the school and the communities. So that is the overall message of the story. What change came about as a result of this initiative? So student engagement became much more intense. Community members became more interested and involved in the classroom practices. And the educator who started this, Miss Sheila Asopa, she also got the National Water Award for this. So she actually created a model where climate education merges very beautifully with climate action. So what are the possibilities for such a model? So what can be done in the future with similar models? So all of that becomes a part of the message that the story is trying to convey. So I've just taken one article as an example and tried to isolate the bits where the drama is there, the context is there, the original story is there with all its different sections, and finally the message. How does this unfold in terms of its future impacts and possibilities? So you can, it would probably be a very good idea for you to go to the DTE website, look for articles, and do this same exercise with a few more articles, and get back if you have questions. I will be happy to take them to Richard, and he will help you out if you face any issues anywhere. So that is all for today. And yeah, just a quick few last minute announcements. So first thing, a reminder about the assignment that we had discussed about in the previous session. So please ensure that you submit it well before time. The Google form link where you have to submit the assignment is there in the group. And please ensure that the pictures are taken in such a way that they depict the problem in a meaningful manner. I saw a couple of entries where the pictures were not doing justice to the issue that is being talked about in the caption or in the description. So if you would like to submit your picture again, you are free to do that. But please ensure that the picture you take represents the issue in a very meaningful manner. Second important thing, since this is the last knowledge building session for the program, so the next step for you now is to go through everything that we have discussed so far and zero down on a problem, a local issue. um, uh, Definitely has to be linked to climate change that you would like to do your project on. So we will share a list of themes with you. I will put that in the WhatsApp group, and you have to select a topic out of those themes. If you feel that the issue that you have taken does not fall into any theme that we provide you, you can discuss it with me and I can help you out with that. So uh, this is another important thing that has to be done by within the next week. You have to share your topics with me. Once you share your topics, I will assign you to respective CSE mentors, and we will have your session with the mentors somewhere in the first week of January. So you will be able to discuss your idea, the project idea. You will be able to discuss any resources that you have already referred to, or any suggestions that you need to take from them, and any other questions basically about the project. So for that to happen, please ensure that you send me your topics before time. Now, is there anything that you would like to ask? Anything that you would like to share? Okay. So if anything comes to your mind, you can definitely get back to me. You can put it in the WhatsApp group as well. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining the session recording. I will share with you the link like I usually do for all the other sessions. I'll share the recording link with you, and also Richard's presentation. I will also share that with you, and the form for the project topics. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, and I hope to receive your assignments and your topics soon. Tamakna, yes, the session 2 recording link is already there in the WhatsApp group. Please check. If you're not able to find it, you can drop me a message. It's already there in the group. This session recording I will put within a couple of days. Right. Thank you. Bye bye, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.